You know you're in the room with a bunch of HR executives where we're like, how do we bring the energy back? Let's do a stretch. Let's do it.
So I spoke at an event in Stockholm, Sweden recently, and for each speaker, they gave a standing ovation. That's how you got brought to the stage. I did a video of it and sent it to my mom.
Okay, hello, good afternoon.
She's like, not so
nice
subtly.
to see you all, and I'm so delighted to be joined by Sam and Anna here on stage. We're going to start with a lightning round, if it's okay. So Sam, putting you in the hot seat. What is a company or brand, not one that you've worked for, that to you signifies performance?
Ooh, from a consumer perspective, and because I have so many sneakers, Nike immediately comes to mind, just because they're always outdoing themselves, and the athlete perspective obviously is super top of mind for me too.
I love that. Perfect. What about you, Anna?
REI. I do a lot of outdoor stuff, and REI stands by every single product, and you can bring it back. And I have brought back stuff that I might have used for 10 years and said, I don't know, it doesn't work anymore. And they said, fine, we'll exchange it.
I love that. I love the sporty spice vibe that we have going on this stage already. Sam, what's one counterintuitive thing that sends a message about your culture that is not your values or posters on the wall?
It's a great question, especially having come from the world of tech into sports. I think one of the things that is really clear, sends a clear message around your values and your culture is how you exit people, whether it's involuntary or voluntary. And then also how you treat people who only consistently meet expectations over time at your organization, not just the high performers, which we tend to focus on a lot, but really everybody who's going through that employee life cycle.
I think those are really good examples. What about you, Anna?
The small stuff really matters, and I think it's worth sweating. One of my favorite HR stories ever was a woman who ran HR for the French Laundry, that fancy restaurant, and in opening the restaurant, they had to hire dishwashers. And 200 people showed up for 2 dishwasher jobs, and there's a line around the corner, and they waited for hours. And she made sure that those dishwasher candidates got treated like French Laundry guests. And so she brought them little cups of soup and amuse-bouches. And she said, these people might not be front of house, but I want everyone to experience the employment brand, just like the the customer brand. And I will never forget it. I think about it in almost every program that I build.
That's a beautiful story and something that all of us can be inspired by. So thanks for sharing. And then I'm going to mix it up. Anna, for you, what's one thing most organizations get wrong as it relates to performance culture?
I think that, 98% of the Fortune 500 use short-term cash performance bonus systems. And I think that is like akin to 1965. I mean, I just don't, I think highly motivated, mission committed executives are giving their all, whether you give them a bonus at the end of it or not. And I think most boardrooms are, and most comp committees are very afraid to go off the beaten path there. And I think it's a fool's errand.
Okay, love that. Sam, what about you?
I think one thing that comes to mind is we tend to make things really complex. Simplicity is highly undervalued and hard to find when you look at our systems, especially around performance reviews, which are arguably the most stressful time for everybody, including all of us. And our stress, of course, is compounded by what the company is feeling. So our efforts to really push for how do we ensure the highest quality conversation between direct reports and managers and document the things that matters. Not the nice to haves, not the pet rock the CEO has because they have this question they want answered. We've all been there. Or creating a bunch of pages through Workday, but really focusing on the keys around what matters and also acknowledging how little time that we have too, and that conversation and that manager direct report interaction is the most valuable part of that.
I think that's such an important point. I got some really tough feedback when Sam and I were both at HubSpot, but I had indicated that if you were writing up the performance check-in as a manager, that should take you roughly 15 to 20 minutes. And that's assuming my style, that's assuming how I work, my learning style. One of our engineers wrote, on average, I contemplate this for 4 hours. And the reality, there's probably a middle ground somewhere between those two things. But I think the point is I was projecting what was easy for me versus easy for him, and I think there's good context there. Sam, you work at an organization that is known for its high performance. How does the LPGA build performance into your culture?
Yes,
Can
I
we
love
just
this.
talk about this for the next 15 minutes and just listen to you?
Yes. I love bragging about our athletes at the LPGA because they're so good. And we actually, this whole season, didn't have a consecutive winner over 25 global tournaments. That's how good they are this season, our 75th year. We just got our first consecutive winner, of course, our world number one, low-key, Gino in Shanghai. I would say that to your question, our athletes are not just raising their game, they're having to refine it because some of our winners this year are rookies. Like they've literally been on the greens a hot minute and they're already taking a title. So for us, we need to raise our game as well to win as a team. So a few ways that I think about that really quickly. One is how do we normalize change? We just got a new commissioner in mid-July, so that was very fun and interesting. And then also the importance of resilience and that we're in the sports and entertainment industry. This is a nights and weekends business. I always find that it's fundamentally really hard, especially to drive change or conversations around performance, if you don't acknowledge the fundamental truths of your business, which is I can't make it not a nights and weekend business. And golf especially is like a circus, you know, from Monday to Sunday at dusk, and then you pick it up and you go to a different golf course in a different country in a different state. To that end, once you accept it and own it, then you build programming that fits that environment for your road warriors, for your HQ staff, for your remote people. Our staff is across about 31 states and 3 countries right now. So on performance, one of the things we did, because our off season is short, our season runs from January to December, is it was like, okay, so we're going to own this and we're going to focus on simplicity of process. So 5 review questions, 5 point rating scale, required training for everyone, but it's the type of training people get excited about. This and I was telling them, I was like, I know you're required to be here, but it's going to be good. We've got some Beyonce music, we've got some scenarios, which are not created from real life, nobody's being mentioned, right? We're going to make this interesting. And then we do require a 30-minute quarterly development conversation in between reviews. And that conversation, because we know that's what people are craving, is that alignment. So we try to, and the other thing I would say is we refined our L&D strategy based off of staff feedback from surveys and also what we saw in trends and performance reviews past. So using that data in a really intentional way to drive, okay, what our people are interested in learning, but also what we're seeing come up in reviews year over year.
I think you raised 2 really important points. One, I loved your point about the no repeat champion. I think there's applicability for all of our performance ratings. Most organizations, the same people are rated top performers are the same people are rated top performers for 10 years. And so we can learn something from the LPGA of looking at like top performer should not be a designation you get and keep all along. And then number 2 is training doesn't have to be awful. Most people look like they're walking the plank when they walk into performance rating trading. And I think we've all been there. I know as someone who works in AI that we do AI trainings, and let me just tell you, there's a difference between a Beyonce party and a mandatory required training that's taught by the same person who teaches them every day in the same conference room. So I think those are 2 good pieces of inspo for us. So thank you, Sam. Anna, let's talk about managers and all this. We can't have this conversation without talking about our favorite topic.
How much time do we have?
Yeah, exactly. In a short 11 minutes. But all kidding aside, what role do leaders play in setting the tone here? And then how do you equip managers to have the tools they need to, as Sam said, give that actual concrete feedback?
So a couple things. So it all, leadership and management is everything. I don't think it's an exaggeration to say there's it's a limitless amount of time you can spend investing in that community, connecting with that community. But one of the things I really thought about a lot at Asana was how it started at the board. And we really believed that the culture of the company that we were aspiring to had to start at the board level. So that means that the board, when we recruited board members, they needed to have the same values and approach to the business that we wanted employees to have. So we wanted to have 2 different games going on, which is a really interesting problem to solve because number one, we really believed in humility and that leaders could learn from all different levels of the organization. And in the boardroom, you want people who've been there, done that, achieved, and a lot of CEOs. And the Venn diagram between that humility and that profile is not very aligned. But we were very intentional about it, and we wanted our conversations in the boardroom to reflect that. The second thing that I just want to share, is this being recorded?
It's being broadcast, yeah. So whatever you're about to say, I wouldn't.
At the beginning of the pandemic, it's a tough time to be an HR lady. Like not recommendable, right? It was really, really hard. And I had some personal experiences with my family that really brought me, it all came crashing down at the same time, that something that became very true to for me was mental health is human health. And if we had people across the organization all of a sudden like with broken arms and not being able to type, well, that would capture people's attention, right? But if people were having mental health crises, well, let's just try to, call the EAP or something. And I became quite a champion of it in 2020. In part because it was personal to me, but also because I'm a capitalist. And if people are going to do good work, they need to be healthy. So bringing it back to the manager, one of the things we said is during the pandemic is y'all have to take care of this. We have to take care of ourselves. And we're going to model that by the first probably 6 company all hands we had during that crazy year, that 2020 year. We started off by asking each executive on the screen, how are you feeling today? And how are you managing your own mental health? And spending 10 minutes of a 60-minute all hands on that sent the message about how important it was. And if we could take the time to do that, surely you could take the time to do that.
I think that's right. And those Beyonce sessions, did you do separate ones for ICs and managers or everyone together? Sam, what's your point of view?
Oh, my Beyonce?
Yeah.
I was like, do you have
I love how
too?
Sam is also like, everyone has a Beyonce session.
I mean, music matters.
It really does. We did do separate ones because, as you would imagine, managers, in order for them to feel comfortable being vulnerable or being like, I don't want to have a hard conversation, I would much rather kick the can and give this person a meet and do this all over again. And we're like, Todd, we really appreciate your candor. We're going to address this. We're going to talk about it. And then you walk through some of the scenarios to help break it down, not formulaically, but just more tangibly for people. It's like, it's possible. We're going to walk every step of this journey with you. We're not asking you to do anything you haven't done before. What I found, which is really interesting about individual contributors, and this was true even when I worked at Wayfair, where they did a similar setup too, and maybe even at HubSpot as well, was that they're so honest. Like, they're like, I don't know how to write a self-review. Or actually someone was like, it's not enough characters. It's like,
that's the same engineer who took 8 hours to write the review.
I was like, I love it. But they were super transparent. Managers tended to be quiet in those sessions. So the differentiation, I think, was really key to kind of promote the, like, it's okay to not know, ask the question, but it's not okay to not act. So push us if you need more tools, support, guidance, whatever it looks like. Maybe you need your manager to be better. We can work on those things, but we can't work from a place of complacency. Sports teams are big brands and then very lean teams. So it's really interesting. And they never really grow out of that, no matter how big they get. Even like the Cowboys, which have like the most valuable franchise in the world, still operates a little bit on that mentality of the economics. So I think it becomes doubly important in our environment to really stress that.
I think that's beautifully said.
We did separate trainings because time is precious and the content is different, but we did make the manager content available to everyone. So for a couple different reasons. One, I wanted everybody to know what I'm holding the managers accountable to, and it's not this secret thing and you only get it when you're a manager. But also, I'm a big fan of trying to drive a little bit of empathy from the employees to the managers. This job is no joke. It is not for the faint of heart, and it's a really big lift, right? The answer is somewhere in between the 15 minutes and the 4 hours. But for most managers that have been managers for 10 minutes, it's closer to the 4 hours. For people like you that are just experts, and by the way, if you follow Katie on LinkedIn, she does just a beautiful job of sharing openly the feedback.
All the
she's
things that I
getting.
messed up.
Yeah,
A long list. I got a lot to talk about.
I'm your chief marketing officer. I think it's beautiful.
But all kidding aside, I do think that's part of the equation. Is I think sometimes there's a temptation, especially when you're a new manager, to be the expert and to assume this posture of I know what I'm doing and I'm going to tell you what you don't. And I just find it so much more humanizing if I start with here are the things. I always release the feedback to my team on here are the things I'm not doing well. And I think it just creates a more open conversation because I completely agree with both your points that ICs get stuck. They're not sure how vulnerable to be or not. They want to advocate for themselves, so create a safe space to model that. Let's talk about red flags, one of my favorite topics. What's a red flag that an organization's culture and their aptitude for performance are misaligned? Anna, you want to take that one?
The list is so long. I have a couple unpopular opinions about this. I have spent my whole career in venture-backed startups where there's a belief system that good ideas can come from anywhere, and there's a real investment in early and career talent. And I never understand how to reconcile that and this this culture of innovation and really invention with if you're a director, you get to fly premium economy, but if you're a VP, you can fly business, right? I don't understand how that jives. I also don't understand how I think severance, for whatever reason it is, when we part with somebody, is a bridge to your next opportunity. But I don't think that it should be tied to things like how long your service was. If you worked at a company for a long time, I paid you for that. Hopefully, in my world, you got equity on that and you helped participate in growing that. But I just don't think that the more senior you are, the more long tenured you are, you should increase your goodbye package.
I love the spicy hot take. Sam, you want to weigh in?
Yeah, I think mine would honestly be too much certainty. Anybody who's walking around super certain, beware. It was like, how do you know? What have you seen?
Do you spend time
Show
with teenagers?
Yeah, I know, exactly. But this happens a lot. I mean, we've all been in the boardrooms. They're like, I know exactly what's going to make the flywheel fly. I know exactly what we need to do. And you're like, okay. I mean, I'm going to talk to him after this. Right? And then I think what it does is it you get into these big organizations. It's like moving the Titanic when you make a change. Yeah. So you do all this change management over something that can't be that certain because people, the market, all of these things that we do not control, rather than building systems that can be flexible and can endure through the changes that are completely normal. To your point about uncertain times, at this point, that's the one certainty. So I think too much certainty is usually a red flag.
I think that's a really good pro tip. We're running out of time. Quick one, how do you measure this stuff? Let's do that, and then we'll get to the one tip.
You're going to go first.
I know it was coming to me. So on performance and culture, I think obviously there is the performance data itself. I think one thing we did really well at HubSpot is we would pull that data twice a year, once a year based on our cycle and really get into it to understand the consistency of the bar being held across teams. That's where you lose a lot of people, especially top performers who look out across the horizon and they're seeing different measures or standards from one team to another, not just work function, but truly a different standard and ways in which people are progressing within their teams. The other thing that I would say is really important is as you look at top talent in particular, the attrition, the tenure, their engagement, you learn a lot through that data as well as measuring potential. Engagement surveys, when done well, are really helpful from a actual trust but verify perspective of if what we believe gets people ahead here or if what we believe about this culture is true, the answers to these questions will be more favorable. Let's see.
I love that.
Two quick hot takes. The investments that we make as leaders in companies in culture really only has one purpose, which is to drive the business forward. And the business exists to achieve the mission. So if you're wondering if your investments in culture or people programs are working, just look at your business results. That is the first, second, and third measure of the effort that you're making. The second thing, I guess just to riff off of you, I always see people kind of respond. I'm on the board of Culture Amp, and so I spend a lot of time thinking about engagement surveys. And it makes me crazy that people just look at their overall engagement survey. I think it really matters, mapping that to your high-performing teams or your high-performing individuals or regions. I'm going to say this bluntly, but I don't care how everyone thinks. I care about how the people that I want more of to think. And since that's a dynamic, changing group of people, I try to track the results to that.
I think the other thing is you should only ask for what you're going to act on. I think sometimes people
Yes.
ask for a lot of feedback because it makes them feel better that they did. You should never be evaluated based on how many surveys you fielded. You should always be evaluated based on how responsive you were and how you move the needle, and I think that gets lost. Quick last one to finish us off. If folks in the audience are looking to take one action to align their performance with their culture and their organization, regardless of what role they have, what would be your advice, Sam?
I think you should, actually building off what you said, ask the question if based on your business strategy, your culture supports it and your performance review process is set up to measure the behaviors and attitudes necessary to help it perform. It's a hard question to answer, but oftentimes that's, that whole culture eats strategy piece, that's what it's really based off of.
I love that. What about you, Anna?
I have a personal life mantra of tell the people that you love them and why. And I think you should do that with your people too. To be really, really specific about what people do right to encourage them to do more of it. And tell them over and over and over again until you're exhausted.
I think that's beautifully said. With regard to performance and culture, I'll leave everyone with, first of all, let's, on the spirit of Anna's positivity, let's do a round of applause for these two wonderful women.
Did you stand up?
But second, I would just say a woman on my team has a great expression, which is she's like, for everything we do, the resort should match the brochure. And I think when it comes down to people will often ask me what do you think of this hot take, insert hot take company? And I'm like, in fairness, I think they're doing what they set out to do. There's nothing wrong with that. Where you start to run into problems is when the resort doesn't match the brochure. And so the best question to ask for your organization is what we're selling matching up with what people are buying? And if so, you're doing great. Keep it up. Tell the people you love them. If not, that's where I would focus on changing the delta. So thank you to these lovely women, and thank you to all of you for being here. I look forward to seeing you at Happy Hour.